It's a great day to talk hoops. I'm ending my summer with a bang today. I have two amazing guests who are crushing it in the field of coaching. In my opinion, these are two of the rising stars. If I'm allowed to say that in the state, and high school basketball, you don't typically get to hear the word star often, but I've talked to a lot of coaches in Wisconsin, and Alex Lavine and Sean Crider often come up as like these guys are doing a great job and it's underappreciated now, but you're going to look in like 2 or 3 years and they're going to be consistently up there. So I'm really excited to be joined by you two at once. And we'll start with Alex first. Alex, me and you go way back. You helped me get my first job into coaching. And I still remember I was fresh out of college. I moved to Oconomowoc and I get a call from an Oconomowoc number. And it's like, hey, we're doing this camp. I heard you're a basketball coach. Could you come help us out at the camp? And we talked for a little while. And after we got off the phone, I was like, this guy must be like 40 years old because he was buttoned up. He was like super professional, official. That I met you, and we're the same age. And I was like, oh my gosh, the maturity of this guy. Alex, how are you doing? And thanks for joining, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, we go kind of way back to the beginning, really, for both of us. And I was just kind of getting my feet wet with a youth basketball program. That's funny, I probably showed up and you saw me and you're like, damn, he's half my size. Uh, but yeah, it's just crazy how that's where we started. You've obviously gone on to have success as a high school coach and kind of entered new realms as well. I was at Oconomowoc I graduated there, coached there, and then kind of moved on too. And it's just crazy how life takes you different directions. But things are good and really happy.
And real quick, you've recently found success at Slinger in the last year. How does that feel like to go from like I'm trying to break through, trying to break through, trying to break through to like we're really good finally, and we're going to compete for not only conference but in the playoffs? What is that feeling like to get to finally, if you can say, make it?
Yeah, every day is like you just try to earn it, right? Like nothing's guaranteed. Um, but we're definitely better than we've been, and that feels great in terms of like the work we've put in. Um, the kids have been phenomenal for a long time, and we just kind of needed time to build it. We've the group that's a senior group for us this year. They were third and fourth graders when we started, so like they just know kind of a certain way of going about things. And then their youth coach is our varsity assistant, Derek Berger, and he's been with them for all those years. And then, they want success. They crave it. Um, they put in more time, so they're better at it. And then I think once you start winning and you're good, there's just this interest about basketball that maybe hasn't existed in quite some time. And some of the games that we had at home last year were pretty crazy in terms of the environment. We had a great year as a school too. Our football team won a state championship. Baseball won a conference championship. Volleyball won a conference championship. So just Slinger in general has always been a great school, a great community, but we're starting to find some success in athletics. There's a lot of people and a lot of work that goes into having success. There's also some luck too, right? You got to be healthy and things got to go your way to some extent. But chop wood, carry water. We're happy with where we're at because we're in a better spot. But we got to just keep working at it, and we can celebrate it someday down the line if we're able to do some good things with it.
Hootie Nation is on fire. Let's get to Sean. Sean, I met you through social media, and I think you're one of the most plugged in coaches in the state. I feel like everyone knows you. And I don't know if you did this intentionally or not, but you've almost became the face of the shot clock movement. I don't know if you planned that or if it just happened, but every time I see a shot clock post, you're somehow tagged in it because they want your input. Sean, how you doing? Thanks for joining. And how did you want to be the face of that, or is it just I want to advocate for this for the game?
The shot clock is just something that I'm passionate about. I think it's important for the game, moving the game forward. Obviously, you see a lot of states are going that way. I just think Wisconsin, we're just lagging behind. The one thing I've been saying recently is that it's going to happen for the people who are like totally against it, but eventually it's going to happen. I wouldn't be surprised if the NFHS makes it mandatory, which I don't know if that'll change Wisconsin's view because right now we're supposed to be playing with quarters and not halves. So I don't know if that'll, like I said, change our state view, but I just think the game everywhere else in the world they play with the shot clock, even at the youngest ages. So why are we not playing with the shot clock here in Wisconsin? So that's just something I've been passionate about. Just a little background. I'm going into my 10th year at Homestead. We've had we've had some success. We've kind of grown the program to where I would say we're respected statewide as a program that is going to come and compete and have some solid players. Um, Historically, Homestead, I would say, has been a football school. They've had a lot of success football. I think 6, 7 state championships, something like that. Um, Homestead basketball has only been to state twice, 78, I believe, and 99, I believe, were the 2 years. If I'm not mistaken. But we've come close. We've had some good teams, some good players, ran into some good teams, and just couldn't figure it out. Kind of like Alex said, it does obviously take good players, a lot of work in the background, a lot of growth, and then you got to have some things go your way. Just part of it. You got to have some injuries, the way the ball bounces. It's a lot of things that you need to go your way to get to the mountaintop, as to use that cliche.
Absolutely. So you guys have really built sustained programs, and I think you're going to compete that upper level for a while now. And whenever I entered Bigfoot, we were horrible and there was no pressure at all. I could go into any game and go, well, if we win, if we lose, no one's going to care much because we are far worse than everyone. And then as the years went on and we found more success, there started to become more pressure and more pressure. And I remember the last year, we'd now gone 2 years in a row of the most wins in the school's history. We had most wins in the playoffs, most consecutive wins, all this stuff. I felt an immense pressure before every game and I couldn't control it. Like I felt like if I lost, I let everyone down and we weren't supposed to lose. So I went from basically going into games free, like I don't, whatever happens, happens, to I need to win. And it was so unhealthy for me. I couldn't really compartmentalize. And I would talk to guys like Jay Benish and I'd be like, so what do you think? He'd be like, you've done your job, just kind of relax and the rest is whatever happens. And I couldn't get in that mentality because I put so much pressure on myself. So starting with Alex, now that your program has more competitive, do you sense like that pressure to win, or are you approaching it any differently with your mindset or preparation, or is it status quo, same old, same old?
Like this cliche is like pressure is a privilege, it's earned. I don't really feel pressure per se. I just try to focus on the work habits. What are our standards and how are we working toward those on a daily basis? The details of things, like literally just stack days on top of each other. Just focus on the work. Um, last year, I don't think anybody thought we were going to be as good as we were. And we didn't really focus on or talk about how good we wanted to be. We just literally worked and fell in love with working and then worked hard and came together as a group and tried to, maximize each other. And it's crazy when you kind of shift your focus to that, what you can accomplish. Now, I will say, yeah, there are days and nights where the stress of it, eats at you a little bit. You don't sleep well. Um, you try to be as reflective as possible in terms of trying to find solutions. The hardest part about one of the hard parts about these jobs is you just can't turn it off in your brain. Um, so instead of like worrying about it and thinking about the result, it's just like, what are our habits? What are the details of what we need to do? Like as simple as be on time, be ready to go, have a plan, those types of things. So one of the other things I wanted to talk about too is just like, you can't just make it about basketball. Like you got to find ways to like inject, I don't want to say fun because that's really not, I think fun is the byproduct of the stuff that you do. But like, how do you invest in the kids and the relationships, and how do you do stuff outside of basketball with them? Like maybe during the summer we play a round of golf, or just call a guy and see what he's up to, see what he's doing, see what's up. Um, I think some of our guys get together and play poker and stuff in the summer, and like those things are just as important as anything, because if you make it just about winning and losing in performance, it can be a roller coaster. So you got to just be about the people too. Um, and just like enjoying each day to some extent.
So, Sean, I want to talk about though, like players. Players sense that pressure a little bit differently, right? Because as coaches, we have to say, it's not a big deal. It's just another game. All these cliches that a coach has to do, and we have to say it. But players, they're kids. They're gonna embrace that or rally around it differently. So how do you manage their expectations and the pressure they feel whenever you're supposed to be competing in these games?
What did we do to prepare? How many shots did you put up? Did you go over your scouting report? Do you know the person you're defending? Do you know what they want to do? Did you watch film? And you try to give that same message to them that if you did everything that you needed to do to prepare for this game, there shouldn't be any pressure. Just go. Let's go out here and have some fun. I know that sounds cliche, but it's still a game. Like, let's go have fun. Let's go hoop. Like, you've been doing this your whole life, and you got to live with the results. Like, you can't control. You especially very good players, like they get sometimes some of them get upset about makes and misses. Like, you can't control that. If you did all the work that you needed to do, there are going to be games where you're going to shoot well. There are going to be games where you're not. But are you doing the other things? Are you rebounding? Are you playing hard? Are you communicating on the floor? The things that you can control, then you can feel good about how, like, you can feel good about the outcome, win or lose. If you did the things well that you can control, and I think that's more of a life lesson as well. And like Alex talked about earlier, like, it's bigger than basketball. You're trying to teach these kids about life in terms of when they have a job, when they have a family. Did you do everything you need to do to put food on the table, to prepare for that presentation that you got to give at work? And whether it goes well, there's a lot of factors. But if you did everything that you needed to do, you can feel good about yourself, and then most of the time it'll go well if you actually did what you needed to do.
Alex, your guys are new to this because for the probably the first time in a long time, I don't know, maybe ever, I don't know Slinger's history. Slinger will be the hunted. It'll be Conan's like those dudes are going to dominate. We have to attack. These guys are a great team. So how are you going to approach differently the whole mental edge of the athletes to go, you have to be on every night because people are coming after you?
Yeah, it's obviously it's a little bit of a new position for us. I think we went through it a little bit last year. Honestly, when we played Homestead at home, the second time, they beat us, and they really kind of controlled the game. We made some runs, but they were the better team, kind of from start to finish. And we just played like with a tentativeness. We were a little bit uneasy. We weren't like in our regular flow, and this, obviously, even if we were, it still would have been tough. But you have to learn to like just focus on what you can control, similar to like what Sean said. Like, so if I miss a shot, what do I do defensively? If I turn the ball over, do I still like know the scouting report? Like, you can't let like a couple bad things linger. You got to just keep it simple, keep it basketball. I always tell the guys, like, remember how hard you work when you're successful. Remember how much you talk when you're successful. And usually when you're talking, you work hard, the nerves go away because you're so focused on other things. But when you sit there and like hope that it's going to work out, it usually doesn't. That's why you got to go back to like what coach is saying and just trust your work. And I think, like, those games or those experiences, although we lost, is a great opportunity to say, okay, so when we play that way, we're not going to be as successful. We've got to collectively be about the work, collectively be about the communication, and we've got to collectively be about moving on from mistakes because they're going to happen. Basketball is such an imperfect game. It's so fast paced. You don't have a huddle. You don't have time to really talk about things during live play. You got to be able to go from one thing to the next thing. You can't even clap your hands in disappointment. You got to go. Now, there are times to talk and those things are important, but it's a crazy game because it's so fast. It's up and down. It's dynamic in that regard. But also, I think just having like authentic conversations, whether they're individual or as small group, like, let's just sit and chat. How you feeling? Do you feel pressure? And if you do, let's talk about what that feels like and how we can collectively kind of work past it. Um, you got to give them opportunities just to talk about how they're feeling and what they're experiencing, as opposed to just assuming that they're feeling pressure. I think that that can be really important. So those kind of individual communications, as well as just trust the work. The work will help you to get through it.
Absolutely. So one of the things I thought was interesting is whenever we were going from like not great to a good team was all of a sudden coaches from the conference would show up and scout. That's how I kind of figured it out. When I turn around and I'd see Rayfield behind me or Watkins or Fox, they were never coming to my games the first few years, but like people are more prepared for you because they know you're someone they need to be prepared for. And I noticed going into games like they're a little more on to what we're doing rather than just go out and play, which I thought was interesting and something I thought was helpful was I just tried to keep it light. I remember the second time we played East Troy in 21, is the first time Rayfield lost at Bigfoot. And I walked into the locker room before the game and I said, guys, I have an announcement. And I just, they were like locked in. And I was like, I won the Retro Bowl MVP on my phone. Or you know what I mean? Like, and everyone's laughing and it's like realize like this is a game, like relax, let loose, and just go out and compete. And I think that's super important. We're in July right now. How much are you actively thinking about next season? Because you can't turn it off. I think Alex said it earlier, and I think Sean, you've also reiterated that you can't turn it off as a coach. So in July right now, how much are you actively thinking about next year and prepping for it?
I would be lying if I said there's not a day. There's not a day that goes by where I'm not thinking about it. At least for part of the day, thinking about rotations, thinking about who's going to be in the rotation, thinking about different things we can do offensively and defensively based on the personnel. I got a newer team in terms of a younger team, some talented players. But young. So just thinking about how I'm going to, get them up to speed when it's game time in terms of like the talent is the talent, but the other parts like the leadership, the understanding the scouting report, that scouting report discipline, what we talk about. Those are the areas that where I'm gonna have to try to speed it up a little bit. But then also with them being young, just thinking about practices, we'll probably have to do a little bit more breakdowns in terms of fundamentals and those type of things. So I'm thinking about it for sure.
And what about scheme and stuff? How much film are you watching from last year and adjustments and tweaking are you doing in the summer versus waiting till the season to start?
I typically do that like in the spring, right before summer league, and start thinking about like I watched some of our games that we filmed this summer, but I haven't. I would say in the last month I haven't watched a ton of film because we in June is so busy. We're playing, they're playing so many games. So in June I don't watch as much film, but in I would say in April and May, I watch film from last year and start thinking about that in terms of scheme and just looking at the personnel that we have coming up. Are we going to do some things differently based off the skill sets of our personnel? Some coaches are system coaches. They do their thing regardless of who they have. They just have a system. I try to be a little bit more open to making changes based off the personnel we have. I mean, obviously, we're going to run our typical offense that we run, but there's some different wrinkles that we may do defensively and even offensively based off the personnel that we have, coming up this year.
Alex, what about you?
Yeah, I think everybody takes a different approach, and I to some extent, it's like after doing this for a while, you start to figure out like what approach works best for you, what is the most productive way to do it. When our season ends in March, we'll plan a banquet and that kind of stuff. I run a spring skills camp with our youth guys, but I really don't think about it a lot. I try to literally just push it off to the side. I haven't watched our last game of the year, and I probably won't. Um, and some people would say, why don't you look at that? And I will if I need to at some point. But I think it's just like, you know, kind of getting a freshness about it. Like, so when June comes, there's like that new energy per se. Um, there's some things that we'll talk about as a staff and like, hey, we want to try to implement this. Let's see what it looks like. And then by the end of June, we either toss it or say, hey, maybe let's refine it, or hey, I really like that. Let's continue to work on that as we get into into the fall league or whatever, or into the season. But now is kind of like the time where you start preparing for the season, like Sean said, thinking about kind of where guys are going to fit. Because I think from April, May to June, like some guys get way better. Some guys don't get better at all. Like there's a lot that changes in those 2 months. So then you have June, you kind of evaluate that individually and as a team, and now you set a new course for like, okay, here's where we need to be in September, right? And then you see where guys are at in September, and then you do it again in November. It's like there's just like stepping stones. So I thought June gave us a really good opportunity to do that, individually and as a group. One thing I really have always admired about this group of guys, it's an experienced group, is every time we get back together, we're better. Individually, guys are adding to their game, and that's a credit to them because I'm not there, right? And that's really, I think part of the reason we got a shot, right, is because we got guys who want to do it on their own, without coaches being present and they're working at it. But now
Oh,
it's like youth stuff. It's when our youth tryouts. What is our fall schedule going to look like in terms of weights and fall league? We got to coordinate our youth coaches, meet with our hoops board, make sure things are kind of ready to go for that. We'll do some youth 3-on-3 leagues and stuff like that. So, um, and then other than that, July we don't really organize as a team. Might play around a golf with the guys or get together with the guys and just see what they're up to, but nothing like too formal.
yeah,
Kind
I
of.
got to tell you, I watched my quarterfinal loss probably 15 to 20 times.
Mm.
And I hated myself more each time. I was like, if we just would have this, if we just would have made this shot, you could sniff the Kohl Center, and that's the pinnacle, and everyone wants that. I just and that's partly why I'd burned out. I would be maniacally obsessed with the losses and go, what happened? I also watched back all the wins every summer because I wanted to feel, like you said, I want to feel good about what I'm doing and confident so I can build that positivity by watching some of that back. But I couldn't stay away from it, man. So good for you. Um, I want to shift to youth. We'll go Alex and Sean. What are you guys do youth really well? And in Wisconsin, it's super interesting that it's one of the few states I've ever heard where the varsity coach is directing a youth basketball organization during a season. No other state's doing that. I've talked to a lot of coaches. I live in Illinois. The middle schools run middle school basketball in other states. Like you just play for the middle school, you play a full travel season for your middle school, and then you get to high school, you play for them. So this whole club out of like your school system is pretty Wisconsin exclusive, which is pretty taxing, I think, in my opinion, on the varsity staff when it's during your season. So, what are some things that you do that have helped kind of shift that responsibility, whether you delegate or whatever? Then also, what are some things that specifically you do in the youth basketball organization that you have found that work? And Alex, I'll let you start. I see your stuff online, and I think you are a youth basketball savant. Your guys' tournaments, 3-on-3 leagues, camps, like you're on it. So tell us about your process.
Yeah, man, the youth stuff it's a lot. It's really um like the high school stuff is so consuming, and like, especially during the season, the youth stuff just seems like impossible to do. Um, but at the same time, like it's the lifeblood of your future, so you have to find time to do it. I'm really lucky because we have a great board, and not just a board that like talks about what they think is best, but they're like working the tournaments, working the camps, like they're on the ground floor with me. And sometimes, they take it over to some extent. Like they run a camp, or and then I can kind of take more of a supporting role and walk around and just kind of build relationships with kids as opposed to instructing the camp. We run a third through eighth grade program during the winter season, and I think that's like the challenging part, is like trying to be more involved during the winter season. During the rest of the year, I think we do a really nice job of being present and being around our kids. Just kind of run you through some of the things we do. We do a skills camp in the spring. I run. We do 2 camps in summer. We run a basketball academy, which runs like a couple days, or like 6 to 8 dates in June. Depends on the school calendar. We run a advanced scoring camp at the end of July, and Coach Berger kind of takes the lead on that. In the fall, in preparation for their season, we do a 3-on-3 league internally or in house.
See, this guy's maniacal. He's
Yeah.
absolutely maniacal. It's crazy. Sorry, go ahead.
So it's I don't know. I feel like I have to do it in order to give our kids a chance to be successful. Some kids are going to go off and play AAU and play in other places. Some kids need us to provide structure for them. Some kind of benefit from both. Um, so it's yeah, it is a lot, right? But like it's what you need to do, especially in a community that is dependent upon a feeder program. And basketball isn't like football, baseball. I think are probably the sports that people are just automatically or more generically in Slinger more interested in. So how do we create energy and excitement toward basketball? And that's um, an everyday thing. You're trying to work toward that. We run youth tournaments, obviously, during the season. Get a fair amount of help with those, so that's great. But those are long Saturdays. But again, it's fun to see those kids play and watch their growth, and you start to think in the back of your mind about how to project those kids and how they might help you. There's some kids who have really invested a ton of time, and their parents have invested, just resources into playing a ton and going to a bunch of camps and being present in the gym and supporting us 100%. And you can see some really nice things happening, and that's nice to see. A little bit of like a snowball effect to some extent. Some good things start happening, and then more good things start happening. I feel really good about some of our kids and some of our teams and where they're headed.
Sean, what about you?
Um, yeah, similar to Alex. The one thing I would say I have an advantage it being in the metro, Milwaukee area. There's so much basketball things going on, so we don't do as much, I would say, as Alex is doing. I have Joe Chapman in my backyard. He runs a 3-on-3 league. It's at Homestead, so why I wouldn't run. I wouldn't need to run. The majority of my kids play in that 3-on-3 league. He does skills training all year long, and the majority of my kids play for his program. He coaches in my youth program. My athletic director, who is he was a D1 college volleyball coach, so he understands coaching. He loves basketball, so he's coached in my youth program. I think the biggest thing in terms of youth program is having quality coaches in your youth program. Obviously, you can't like any parent who's given their time and is uh just giving their time, you appreciate it. Like it takes a lot of time in the winter, 2 days, two practices a week typically, and games on the weekend. So those parents who do that is so much appreciated. But when you have parents who do that and do more and understand the game and understand coaching and holding kids accountable, and it makes our job so much easier at the high school. That's one thing I've learned, throughout my journey, is that youth coaching is so, so, so important. Feeder programs, so important. Um, I do have a basketball academy 2 days a week in July where I work with the youth kids. I have one in the fall where I work with the young kids, like first and second graders. I think, like Alex said, relationships is the most important part of it. Like, you get to know these kids, you get to know their families. So when they do get to high school, they're not strangers. Like, you know their names, you know the parents' names. And then it's easier to have positive relationships when you get to know people, parents and kids when they're so young. In the spring, I have also have another basketball academy in the spring. Um, I used to coach AAU, so I would purposely coach middle school kids, seventh and eighth graders who I knew were coming to Homestead. I kind of stepped back from that a little bit as my kids have gotten a little older. Coaching takes a lot of time away from the family, so kind of stepped back on that a little bit. But I still maintain relationships with those AAU coaches, and I like Alex said as well. If I can, I typically try to get someone from my staff to be a coach or for seventh or eighth graders, so they really get a feel of what we're trying to do at the high school program right before they enter high school. So I think that involvement is so helpful, and our our high school program has been good, I would say, the last 5 or 6 years because of how much work and how much time and the great coaching that we've had in our youth program the
How
last.
selective are you with these coaches? Do you do like an interview process? How do you weed them out? Because surely you've got tons of dads that want to be a part of it.
I wouldn't say I try to. I don't want to say weed people out, but I try to be cognizant of who. I would say I actually probably been more fortunate than anything, just having guys who are basketball guys have kids in certain grades and want to be involved. And I've even, personally asked parents like who I know are basketball guys, like, do you want to coach? So I would say more about the relationships instead of weeding people out. Kind of build relationships and trust, and just have those conversations and ask, do you want to help and be involved?
I don't know if this will be surprising to you, and I'll let you go after this, Alex. My years at Bigfoot, I had 0 years with a full team in sixth, seventh, and eighth grade or a coach. So like so much of like I think Alex at the very beginning said about running a program, so much of it comes down to kind of luck and in a weird way, like it is skill, but just in my area, what I was dealt with, I didn't have basketball players, so I had to merge fifth and sixth grade, I had to merge seventh and eighth team. Like our youth program was a disaster and I couldn't figure it out. Alex, go on. What were you going to say?
Yeah, I was just going to echo what Sean said about like the youth coaches and how important they are, and they're the transformational uh, piece to it all. Like if you have a guy or a girl who knows uh, what basketball is looks supposed to look like, how to teach it, and then more importantly, I think like how to hold kids accountable without like just yelling at them. Like how do you build a relationship and hold them accountable and get them to understand like right from wrong and this is acceptable and this isn't, like how to play the game the right way. And those are challenging things to find, and when we've found those and kids have worked with those people for a long stretch of time, that whole youth experience, we've had success. In some grades we have interviews where we have 4 or 5 people interview for an opportunity, and then we pick the best candidate. In other grades we're literally just taking the one person who volunteers. And that's not to say that they can't do it, but we know that they're going to need our support. And we're already stretched, kind of thin to some extent, right? So, but you got to do what you got to do. So it's crazy how it's different grade to grade. But when you have people who can really lead those teams or lead those grades, it becomes transformational as a high school coach in terms of like what gets done without you being there, but it also becomes transformational to those kids, because not just what they provide, like the 2 practices a week and the games, but like the extra stuff. Maybe they organize an AAU team. Maybe they get into extra practices. Maybe they do some summer camp together. Like the best are just like continuing to find opportunities and throwing them at the kids. And when they keep taking advantage of them, they get better, they enjoy it, they want to do it more. And then it becomes something that they love and care about a ton. And that's kind of like literally the process of like our senior group right now, with having really good coaching all the way through. And now they're in a spot where, they love it because they've invested so much time and care so much about it.
Yeah, what's really funny, Alex, is you're this youth basketball guy and you're organized and you have a lot of scheduled. And this is whenever you left Oconomowoc and then the varsity coaches left Oconomowoc, and it was just me for the whole summer at 23 years old. I looked out at the schedule and there's like a camp every day for 2 months. And it's just me. And I was like, what do I do? But honestly, it was like a thrust into the deep end because I ran like Division 1 basketball at 23 for an entire summer because Jay wasn't hired until the end of July. And when Jay got on, I was like, I can't go back to doing JV anymore after doing this. Like, this was fun, and now I know how to do it. But it was really funny because I was like, I got a camp. Natalie's like, where's vacation? I was like, Alex scheduled a camp every day this summer, so we're not going anywhere.
Yeah, I was single back then, so basketball was my 100% all day every day deal. I don't know if I could do what I did then. Just we had a lot of offerings. But I think you got to find that balance too. Like you got to offer what you got to offer, and there's got to be a reason for it. But then there's also got to be time where like you prioritize other things in life. Kids too. Kids like
Yeah.
I think most of our guys are going to be done with AAU after this next weekend. They need like 2 or 3 weeks of like no basketball. Like literally just be a kid, go swimming, hang out with your friends, go on a family vacation. Uh, like that's important too. We all need that.
Yeah. So here's what I want to do next. I want to shift to more scheme discussion. And I scheduled you guys on because I was like, these are great young guys in the coaching field. And I didn't really realize that you were in the same conference, which is really funny. I thought Homestead was in the Woodland for some reason. I don't know why I thought that. My fault, user error. But I got two conference coaches on here now. What I want to do here is I want to ask you one at a time. How do you prepare for the other guy? Like share what makes their team difficult to play and what you think whenever you're going into those games.
So a couple things that are very like always strengths of Sean's teams. They always push the ball in transition. Like guys will run to the corners. You don't guard them. They'll pass it ahead. They'll hit a three. You don't stop the basketball. They have a guy who can get to the rim. They have guys that run the floor. We practice or emphasize stopping transition. Um, Really good at pressuring the ball, making handoffs, dribble drives difficult, ball screens. They're aggressive. They switch. They vary their coverages as well. Sean runs a lot of action to get to what he really wants. And he does a really good job of that in terms of, we'll run this handoff action and then we'll run a zoom action. And then all of a sudden we got a cross screen for a guy that we want to get open, kind of like massaging you to get to what he actually wants to get to. And he's had guys who, when they get the ball in certain spots, it's tough. So you got to really be like, you got to anticipate, you got to know what's coming. You got to try to take it away. So his teams always stand out to me as teams that play with great speed and pace, as well as they run, good action. They're not just standing around playing one on one. There's a purpose or a method to their madness. I think too, it's like he always has had this good balance of like guys who can score from the perimeter as well as some guys who can score inside, and that makes it tough as well.
Yeah, I would say it's gotten a lot harder to prepare for Alex as his teams have become more talented for sure. That's just the facts. He's always been well prepared. His teams always play hard, always rebound well, just compete. Even when he had less talented players, his teams have always have been competitive. And I would say maybe year one or maybe year 2 or 3, he had a really good team. They were seniors and they were just athletes, not super skilled basketball players, but he had a couple guys. I think one of them went to go play D1 football, if I'm not mistaken. He was a good player. So his teams have always, and one thing also I'll say, always well prepared. They know, like he talked about the different actions. He knows that's what we want to do. So his teams are prepared. He has us scouted. So it's not as easy to get to some of the things that we want to do offensively. And then the one thing I'll say too, since he's had good players, he does a good job of getting them to their spots to where they're effective at scoring. Like, you get a kid like Jack Conan, he gets Jack to that Barkley. Jack is dangerous with a Barkley. He'll run some actions, but then it'll get to the side where you get Jack in an isolation situation. He's tough to handle. And then just I would say as his team has become more, I would say, basketball oriented, they play with a great pace too. They play way faster than what they had played in the past, and just varying some of the things they even do defensively, pressing more, and he didn't really press a lot. So I always circle like Slinger is going to be a game, and especially like the last 2 years, we know that like I was not surprised that they were as good as they were this year. I saw them in the summer last summer. I saw it coming. So credit to Alex. Like obviously, players are players. Like you are only as good as the players that you have on the floor to a certain extent. That's just the facts. And anybody who tells you anything different is probably lying. You can be a great coach and have less talented teams. You're going to compete. You're going to play hard, do all those things. But to be to be the team that you really want to be, you got to have great players on the floor.
Hey, speaking of talent, you guys both have players who have been or are highly sought after basketball players for the college coaches. How's that process been for you, Alex? And especially now you're getting Division 1 looks. Tell us about what it's like having a player recruited and what you've noticed about college coaches that they're doing is like a good job in recruiting, or just things you didn't expect that you just never had. You've never experienced this before, having a Division 1 player and coaches coming and calling and that stuff. What surprised you about the process?
Uh, Man, I mean, it's all new to me, right? Like, so just learning and figuring out kind of how they go about it, what are the rules, per se. But it's just been really cool, to maybe have more access to people who are really passionate about basketball, who know the game, who have recruited or coached high level guys. I think all of us, like, man, that would be a really great opportunity. Like, you would love an opportunity like that because you just love basketball and that kind of deal. But I think what's also really crazy about the college landscape, and I I don't know what it was like 5, 6 years ago, but like the work that they put in to recruiting is incredible. Like the amount of time and effort and travel and time away from family, and that's like a job that never ends. It's not just like during the off season; it's all the time. You beat somebody in a big game, and all of a sudden you're calling some high school coach to check in to see how his kid's doing, right? Like it's just a really demanding job, but from my perspective, a really cool job. So it's been cool to get to know some different staffs, talk to those people, and build relationships with them. And I've enjoyed that.
Real quick though, it's cool though. Yeah, it's cool though. Yeah, you have these Division 1 coaches who you probably looked up to for a while, and they call you, and that's pretty cool, right?
Yeah, for sure, right? Like your phone lights up and it's, Shaka Smart. It's like, oh, I didn't think Shaka Smart was ever going to call me. So like, that's kind of interesting deal. Pretty cool in that regard. But I think what you find out is like they're just really good people. Like runs a really good program, good person, trying to do the best he can. Really cool that he's interested in a kid that I get to spend a lot of time with. And yeah, as a kind of like a little kid, right? Like you look up to them still. As a grown adult, you look up to them and uh, have some envy for the work that they get to do. But they're challenging jobs. There's a lot that goes into it. So they're really talented people.
Hey, text him, hey Shaka, Jack said he may be interested, but I got to get to know you better. So we'll meet for some beers or at a restaurant. We'll hang out, play some golf, and I figure that would be the best process, right?
Yeah, I'd be down for some golf at a nice course. Sean, you want to come with?
Yes, sir.
Uh,
Sean, what about you? What about you with because I know you've had some guys that have been recruited, and recently you had a good player. Was it Frank's?
Yep.
What's it like been like for you?
I worked for NYLA when it was like really, really, bustling. So I kind of developed some relationships with some of these coaches when I was working for him. Like I helped basically run the tournament. So I kind of knew some coaches, had some phone numbers. And then also I coached AAU for some years, some high school kids as well. So I kind of already had some relationships with some coaches and kind of knew some coaches. So it's it is it's interesting. Like Alex said, like just how hard they work in order to get a kid. And I haven't had a kid, I would say, as highly touted as Jack. I haven't had a kid like that where I'm having like high major coaches calling, but the process is still the same. Like they call and ask questions, how the kid is doing, and you have a newfound respect for the work that they put in how they go about trying to woo a kid to their school. That the recruiting process is I think it's no different than as a high school we talked about building relationships with the youth program. That's really what it is. It's trying to develop a relationship with that kid and with that family that kid's whole inner circle, whether it be his high school coach and his parents and that kid's AAU coach. So I think it's just all about um, developing relationships, and it is an interesting process for sure.
You know what's interesting? Whenever I was coaching, I had two guys get recruited, and it was very minor. It's like D3, NAIA type stuff. I got zero calls from head coaches. Zero. And so there's one of two truths. Either they just weren't good enough to get a call from a head coach, which is possible, or at the lower levels, it's more delegated. It's like assistants or maybe talking to AU and stuff like that. I was surprised by that. I thought for sure you'd have like more conversations, like more people would want to know what's this kid like in the classroom, at home, and that sort of thing. But they really, it seemed to me, veered toward AAU, which that just surprised me. Um, Alex, is there anything else that you've learned or even like helping your guys get recruited that's like this is a helpful thing to do that coaches like a young coach listening, here's what would help?
I would just say networking. Like the June Jam is a great event. They do a really good job with that and putting that on. And we had a bunch of guys um, get kind of interest or kind of start the process and have some phone calls with some different Division III coaches, which is great. And I don't think without that platform that would have maybe taken place as seamlessly. Um, Highlight stuff like putting a highlight film on Twitter. Just letting your high school coach that you're interested in and letting that high school coach, send emails and stuff like that to other coaches that they might know. I'm really lucky. I'm kind of getting back to like just the youth stuff, the high school stuff. I have like a really experienced staff. Everybody who's on my high school staff has been a head coach, a varsity head coach, which is great. I got hired at 25. I had a lot to learn. So for me to kind of be around people who are more knowledgeable than me, and then for me to kind of be able to learn from them has been really transformational. Um, and just helps me to become, a better version of myself through time. But without those people, we're not even close to where we're at. So, the credit is widespread. There's a lot of people who've had hands in this.
I want you to give advice to a young coach just starting, or maybe not even young, maybe just new. There's a new coach entering the field. What advice would you give them from a career so far and learning what to do and what not to do?
I think the first thing I would say is humility. Like be willing to do whatever. Like even if it's going to get the head coach coffee. Like I don't want anybody to do that, but I'm just saying don't be afraid to don't don't be too proud to do the little things. Sweep the floor before practice. Wash the practice jerseys. Do the little things, and that will. Because I just think that humility is so important to me. Like I think you have to be humble. I think people who are humble, good things come. Like you don't have a mentality I'm too good for this. Like you just have to be appreciative and humble and be willing to try new things. Like I would also say like somebody who is near being a head coach. I've had coaches on my staff. Make sure you take the right job. Don't rush to be a head coach just to say you're a head coach. No, like do some research on the school, on the background. Like who are you going to be working for? And I think that's very important because you want to be at a place where you feel supported, where you can have the opportunity to have success. And like Alex said, your staff, like if you do get that opportunity, surround yourself with experienced people and most of all, good people. If you are looking for a job and looking to eventually be a head coach, go look for a coach a coach for someone like Alex, someone who is going to be fair and he has experienced people around him. I think who you work for is kind of like the ground floor in terms of stepping stone to eventually become a head coach. You want to work for guys who are good people, who are doing it the right way, and who are having success. Because you want to be a successful coach, you need to be around people who are doing it the right way and obviously having success.
I think the first that everything Sean said was great. I'll talk a little bit more about some of it, but I just think like the biggest thing I would say is like it's going to be a lot harder than you think it's going to be. Um, And like it's just being a JV coach or a freshman coach or leading a youth program or being the assistant is just not the same as being the varsity head coach. It's just not. When you sit in the chair, it just feels different. You have so much more responsibility, and it's not X's and O's. It's managing and uh, building relationships with so many people and having relationships that are uh, good, positive relationships in which you're working to help them get better and to maximize who they are, whether they're a youth coach, a youth player, a freshman in your program, a varsity player. How do you have conversations with people who have been head coaches before, have coached, state championship level teams? How do you have a constructive conversation with them where maybe you question something that, you're not on the same page? Are you willing to do that? Like having hard conversations with adults, having hard conversations with parents. Like it's just a really all encompassing job, and it's not just about like showing up on game day and looking cool and throwing some dunks on. Like it's a grind. So embrace that. The humility piece I think is huge because you're going to coach good teams and you're going to coach some not so good teams, and that's not necessarily a reflection of you. In terms of the wins and losses, but I think like how they handle themselves in terms of their character and how hard they work is more a resemblance of like the impact that you're making. Be reflective. You're going to make mistakes. Be reflective. Every coach makes mistakes in terms of how they handle situations, how they handle players, the calls that they make. Just grow from it. Um, the thing that I think has helped me is experience, and through experience, I've been able to be more intentional about what I'm doing and what I'm saying. Sometimes I'll just start to get guys a little fired up at practice just because I think that's what we need. Other times I let some stuff go, but I'm a lot more intentional about how I'm going about it and what I'm doing as opposed to being like, this isn't right, and maybe getting upset or getting, the ups and downs, right? Like trying to be more steady and intentional about what I say and how I do it. Your assistants are so important. You're not going to be anything without really good assistants, especially when you're trying to run a youth program. You got a high school program going on. Your division one, two, three. Like there's just a lot of responsibilities that go on, and I think you need other people that you can depend on. And I think like the coolest thing about all this is like when you build relationships and you work really hard together, regardless of what you accomplish, like it's just a special deal. Whether you win the state tournament or you lose in a regional, you go 500, as long as like you're all in for the same thing and you maximize to some extent what you're able to do, great. Like that's all you can ask of kids in life is to like be 100% into it, work hard, fight through the adversities that come up, don't quit, stay true to the course. That's the good stuff. All the things Sean said are great too. You don't just jump on a job to get a job. I think who you work for is really important. I've been really blessed to work at Slinger. The administration there is top notch. Like people who have, um, coached varsity sports, have a great understanding for the ups and the downs of it, have been extremely supportive from start to present. And without that, I might not be here today, right? Like you need that support in order to kind of navigate some of the storms that are going to come and to become better and to work toward like it's like I said, the game is imperfect. You're an imperfect coach. I'm not like I hope I get better. I want to get better this year. I want to be better next year. Like if I expect my guys to get better, I got to be invested in getting better too. And that's what makes this really fun and rewarding too. Is just getting better and improving, and not just in the X's and O's, but like how to build culture and how to build team and how to have relationships and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, I'd say two things. Why, and then I'll let you finish too.
Yeah.
I think willingness to ask other coaches for advice is huge. I think we are so proud being in sports. Like my stuff is the best stuff, where I got this covered, and there's some sort of weakness in asking for advice. Like I just remember sitting at the fall clinic with you, Alex, and I've always thought you were a better coach than me. I just believe that. But however, you would sit there and you'd ask me like, so what did you do? What happened here? And when you had that successful year, what did you think? And all this stuff. And but you did that not because you were lesser than, but because you wanted to acquire information. And like we all have something positive we can give to another coach. It's just the humility to ask. And the second thing I would say is don't take the losses personally. They're not an indictment on you. as your character. I've had nights after games where I cried, and I was like, I look back and I go, it was not that serious. You know, and you just have to keep it moving. Go ahead and finish, Alex.
Yeah, the only other thing I was going to say is, you had mentioned talking about coaching star players, and I was just interested to see kind of what Sean had to say about that a little bit. And I don't want to say star players, but like, how do you coach your best guys, and what does that look like? I have a sense for what that looks like from Sean, but I think it's interesting. Like I think there's this perception of like good players just do it without you. And I'm not trying to say that I deserve credit, right? Or like the coach deserves credit. But like every day you have to push and challenge people. And if you don't, it's human nature to try to get away with less than your best, right? And you have to establish those standards and habits. And I'm not just talking about like star players. I'm talking about like good high school players. How do you demand uh the work out of them or the standard out of them so that they can do it on a regular basis and maximize who they are. So I just thought that that would be interesting to kind of see what
Yeah,
Sean
we
had to
got
say.
time. We got time. Sean, go ahead. How have you
And
how have
and
you
and
managed to coach
I
that?
got to be clear, Sean. Those guys at Homestead, Sean, their group, like they're the standard for basketball in the North Shore. Like, listen, we're new to kind of competing for
But
championships. Those guys over there have been really good for 5 or 6 years. They've been there. So I think Sean deserves that credit. But also, he's really helped to maximize some kids. Like I've seen kids in his program start out as freshmen, and you knew they were going to be good players, but he's really helped to push them and elevate their games to get them, opportunities to be maybe an undersized guard that plays like Division II college, where maybe they would have been a Division III guy. So like, how do you go about that?
um, I would say like kind of what you said earlier. It's not the work alone by me. Obviously, my staff and even the A coaches. I would have to give a lot of credit to Joe Chapman who coached a lot of these kids growing up. And it's even other AAU coaches, Jake Holton, who's the coach at Living Word Lutheran. He coached some of the guys in AAU. So I think it's a community effort, but I think the biggest thing, no different than a star player or a rotational player. I think every kid is different to a certain extent. Like I coach Tim Franks probably a little different than I coach Trevor Polite. Like they're just two different personalities. Like Tim Franks, I could really get on him. I think you do have to be harder on the star player regardless. And what harder looks like can be different based on who that player's personality is. I think you didn't mention his name, but a kid like Solomon Garrison, like he was a kid who may have not played, college basketball coming in. He was a talented, quick, fast guard, but he got better every year. He got better, and I was on him like I was on him hard. My JV coach, who coached him, he was a freshman on JV. He was Coach Eric Mack was on him hard in practice, like, and he got better. Like he just got better. And when we mean by hard, like holding him accountable to what a point guard should look like. It wasn't like yelling and screaming at him, but when he made a mistake, you held him accountable and you taught him what he needed to do to correct that mistake. So I think the biggest thing is you have to hold the best player accountable. You can't let them get like sometimes you said you let things go, and I let things go with certain kids because I you want to say like it is like intentional, like we got to move on. But with a star player, you can't, especially if you want them to play. If they have dreams and you've had those conversations with that kid that he wants to play at the next level, because at the next level, they're not going to let it go ever. Like they're just not. They can't because those coaches they're living and dying on wins and losses at the college level. It's kind of different than us. So I think you kind of have to preach that to those star players that I'm holding you to a different standard because you said you want this. This is your goal. You want to play at this level. So I can't let you get away with that. Otherwise, I'm not helping you, reach your goal. And obviously that's as an educator first, That's my goal, is to help kids reach their goals. And I see that the same way as a basketball coach. If a kid tells me he wants to play in college, then I'm going to be on that kid a little bit different than a kid may is out playing for fun. Like, we all want to win, but kids have different goals even on the team. Like, you have a kid who works hard, comes to practice every day, but he doesn't see basketball as a vehicle past high school. Those kids who see basketball as a vehicle past high school, I'm going to hold them to a different standard, um, in practice, even outside of practice. Like, are you getting up extra shots? Are you watching extra film? Like, I'll bring it up in front of everybody. I said it last year to a kid. You told me you wanted to play college basketball, but I look at the film. You watched 15 minutes of film this week. That ain't gonna work. That's not gonna work.
Can I add something to that, Sean? I agree with everything you said, and I think it's important to hold them accountable. And I think I would add on, it's kind of a hot take, maybe. I had a 1,600 point score. I addressed that with my team. I think a lot of coaches would go like, "Oh, we're all equals. We're all," and I no, like we have someone scoring 28 points a game. Like this guy has worked for it. He has earned it. He has spent his summers, his winters, his evenings, his mornings in that gym. We're going to this kid if the game is on the line. And I straight up would say it. Like he was number 30. We had a play called 30. And it was an inbounds where we'd ISO him out on the wing and they would be get out of the way. I thought that was important to establish with my team. Like I love you all the same. Truly love you all the same. But if we need a bucket, get the ball to Gus. Like, d don't be selfish. Get the ball to the guy who's scoring on 60% of his touches. That's where we're going. And ever we had that final playoff game where we went on the buzzer beater, it wasn't even a question. We got in the huddle. There's 2 seconds left. I said, we're going to Gus. Like, I don't care how we're getting him the ball. He's getting the ball. And if our season ends, it ended because he missed the shot. To me, I think if you have a team that loves each other and really wants to win, they're going to embrace that and root for that. Do you agree, Sean?
I totally agree. I do it in practice all the time, where I had a kid uh, look off Michael Rogers, who's shooting 45% from three. Like, no, don't look him like, what are we doing? Like, you shoot 20% from three. You want the same level of, the same string, then you got to work as hard as he works. So you have to get to his level. I think you're totally right, Hunter. Like, you have to, and good teams embrace roles. That's what it really is. You're embracing roles. Like, if this guy is the guy, he's an all conference caliber player. He has Division I offers. Like, he needs the ball in his hands when we say we need the ball in his hands. It's really not, shouldn't be up for negotiation. That doesn't mean that, player B is not important. Like, you have to give him the ball. You have to set the screen. And if they double, he has to give it to you for you to make a play. Like, but the star player is the star player for a reason.
Oh, I guess I was just going to say I think accountability is totally the theme of like coaching your best player. Let's just say your best player, whoever that is. When you are holding them accountable, it sets the foundation for everybody else, like what is acceptable and what is not. Um, and I think also like being authentic and vulnerable, where you admit to mistakes, you take blame for things. Sometimes you just take those burdens away from kids and just say, hey, let's just move on. That's on me. I got to be better. And I'm sorry I wasn't. Um, I think that that's important too. Because even as an adult, think about like that's hard to handle sometimes. Like imagine being a kid and handling that, right? But I think what's important too is what Sean mentioned is like roles, like right, like what do you do to help us to be successful? And I think if we like want to have stats, we're gonna struggle. Anybody, right? Like you be about winning. What do you need to do to help us win? Because when you win, there's so much credit to go around, right? Everybody seems to have this perfect role when you win. Everybody seems to be contributing. And I think if you make it about winning, the rest really takes care of itself. But sometimes, like Sean said, you got to be really transparent. Like he's better at shooting the basketball than you, passing the ball. Um, But at the same time, like you said, it's not because I don't love you guys. That's just the right play. That's the right play that we need to make.
Absolutely. Well, guys, we're at our time here. I just really appreciate you hopping on, and I do believe this. I think you both are the future of at least Wisconsin's game. I think you guys have established programs that will be cornerstones for a long time. Every coach I talk to has positive things to say, and I think keep doing what you're doing. We see it as stressful as early playoff exits or disappointing games are. Like we know your ability and your character, and I just want to say keep it going, guys, and keep carrying that torch. Anything on the way out, guys?
I just say thank you for having us. I appreciate what you're doing with your podcast. Anybody who is pushing the game that I love forward and having those conversations, I'm all for it.
Yeah, thanks, Hunter, for just continuing to find a way to impact the game. I've listened to other podcasts that you've put out, and I think they've been really informational. Informational. I've learned from them. It gives me a platform to learn from coaches that I otherwise maybe don't have a relationship with. Um, so thanks for doing what you're doing. It's always fun to sit down with coach as well and talk. So I appreciate it. It's good stuff.
Absolutely. Well, this is the last one of the summer, and then we're going to move on to fall. I'm going to take a little break, but this winter I'm really excited. I've announced this, but if you're tuning in for the first time, Jay Benish is going to do a weekly podcast with me, and we're just going to break down his season as it goes. So they played a game on Thursday. We're going to talk about it on Friday. What did you learn? What decisions would you make differently when that coach went to that zone? What were you thinking? And nothing's been done like this, so we're going to figure it out as we go, like best practice and how much secrets are you giving away and things like that. Like you don't want to do too much there, but I'm super appreciative. Look forward to that, and we'll see you guys later.